Norman Bates is one of the most iconic and disturbing characters in literature and film, created by Robert Bloch and immortalized by Alfred Hitchcock in Psycho. The known story of Norman revolves around his dysfunctional relationship with his mother and his dual personality. However, there is a little-known tale that delves into the depths of Norman's mind before the events that made him infamous. The forgotten past of Norman Bates. Before becoming the solitary owner of the Bates Motel, Norman Bates was just a lonely and reclusive boy living in a small rural town. Norman's childhood was marked by a traumatic event that few know about, but which played a crucial role in shaping his psyche. When Norman was only 10 years old, he made an unlikely friend named Samuel "Sammy" Green. Sammy was a boy his age who had recently moved to town with his family. Unlike Norman, Sammy was outgoing, adventurous, and always willing to explore the forests around the town. The two quickly became inseparable, and Sammy brought a light and joy to Norman's life that he had never experienced before. One day, during one of their explorations, the boys discovered an abandoned cabin in the forest. Sammy, always curious, decided they should investigate. Inside the cabin, they found an old locked trunk. Sammy, being the natural leader, managed to open the trunk with a rock and discovered a collection of old diaries. These diaries belonged to a man named Jeremiah Blackwood, a former resident of the town who had been accused of several heinous crimes before mysteriously disappearing. The diaries detailed macabre rituals and occult practices that Jeremiah believed would grant power and immortality. Fascinated and terrified at the same time, Sammy began to read the diaries obsessively. Norman, though reluctant at first, was slowly drawn into Sammy's fascination. The stories of power and control over death began to take root in Norman's impressionable mind. The friendship between the two boys began to change. Sammy became obsessed with recreating the rituals described in the diaries, convinced that he could gain supernatural powers. Norman, on the other hand, began to develop a morbid fascination with death and control, influenced by Sammy's disturbing thoughts. On a fateful night, Sammy convinced Norman to help him perform one of the darkest rituals described in the diaries. They ventured into the forest, bringing with them a stray cat that Sammy had captured. The ritual involved sacrificing the animal and reciting incantations. However, what began as a child's game quickly turned into a nightmare. In attempting to perform the ritual, the boys unleashed a series of events that resulted in Sammy's tragic death. Terrified and consumed by guilt, Norman buried Sammy's body in the forest and swore never to tell anyone what had happened. He returned to his everyday life, but the trauma of the incident left deep scars in his mind. Sammy's obsession with power and control, combined with the traumatic event of his death, planted the seeds of dissociation that would eventually lead Norman to create the personality of his mother. Over time, the influence of Norman's domineering mother and the traumatic events of his childhood intertwined, culminating in the creation of the monster the world would come to know. But somewhere deep within Norman, the memory of Sammy Green and Jeremiah Blackwood's macabre diaries remained, a constant reminder of the thin line between sanity and madness. This story, buried deep within Norman Bates' mind, reveals a lesser-known side of his origin, showing how a childhood friendship and a traumatic event can forever shape a person's destiny.